September 18th, 1944. For 12 hours. Eastern edge of the Hurtgen Forest, Germany. Cold rain needles down through the pine canopy, tapping steel helmets, soaking wool coats, turning the narrow logging road into black mud. Somewhere ahead, a machine gun coughs once. Short, probing, then goes quiet again. You hear boots shifting in the dark, the low metallic click of a rifle bolt being eased forward, a whispered curse swallowed by the trees. The platoon is strung out along the treeline, bodies pressed into shallow depressions scratched into the forest floor. Breath fogs the air. The smell is wet earth, pine sap, and the faint, sour stink of cordite lingering from a firefight hours earlier. No one speaks now. Everyone is listening. At the center of the line, hunched under a rain-darkened poncho, is a man the army tried not to send here. His hair is already going gray at the temples. Deep lines cut from nose to mouth, etched by years of farm sun and factory smoke. The younger soldiers glance at him when they think no one notices, at the stiffness in his movements, the way he rises slowly from a crouch, favoring one knee. Back in the replacement depot, they called him too old, said the front would break him, said he was better suited guarding bridges or stacking crates. Now he is here, rifle across his knees, eyes fixed on the blackness ahead. A runner slides in from the rear, mud up to his calves, breath ragged. He leans close to the platoon leader, voice barely audible over the rain. German patrols moving south. Estimated company strength in the area. Wires cut. Battalion says hold position. Hold position. In the Hurtgen Forest, that order is a sentence. The older soldier shifts, rolling his shoulders to work, feeling back into them. His name is on the roster like everyone else's, but tonight it doesn't matter. What matters is that he's been awake for nearly 40 hours, that his socks are soaked through, that his fingers ache with cold as he checks the action of his M1. The familiar weight steadies him. He knows this rifle. He knows how it sounds when it fires in trees like these, how the crack echoes, how it confuses distance and direction. Somewhere to the left, a branch snaps. Every head turns. The forest seems to lean in. Rain hisses on leaves. You hear a muffled voice, German, too close to be imagined. A shape moves between the trunks, then another. Helmets, rifles slung low. They are not rushing. They are searching. The platoon leader raises a fist. Freeze. The older soldier lowers himself, belly to the ground, cheek pressed into wet leaves. His heart is steady. Not calm steady. There's a difference. He has felt this before, long before the army ever stamped his papers. He watches boots pass through a gap in the trees, mud sucking at the soles. He counts without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. The Germans stop. A flashlight flickers on, briefly, slicing a white line through the rain. It schemes over bark, over ferns, over a discarded ration tin. It is moving toward the American line. Time stretches. Seconds feel like minutes. You feel the tension in your jaw, the ache in your neck from holding still. Somewhere, a man's breath comes too fast. The older soldier makes a decision without speaking. He brings the rifle up, slow, deliberate, the motion practiced until it is nearly silent. The front sight settles. He exhales halfway and holds. The shot shatters the forest. The German at the edge of the beam jerks backward, flashlight spinning into the mud. Shouts erupt. Another rifle answers, then another. Tracers tear red slashes through the rain. Bark explodes from trees. Someone screams. The platoon opens up. The older soldier fires again, and again, each shot measured, each recoil absorbed through bone and muscle hardened by years of work. He shifts position between shots, rolling a shoulder, sliding a knee, never staying where return fire expects him to be. A German silhouette stumbles into view, rifle raised too late. The older soldier drops him at 20 yards. Grenades go off with dull, concussive thumps, showering mud and pine needles. The forest fills with smoke that clings low, mixing with rain to burn the eyes. Orders are shouted, lost, shouted again. Radios crackle and die. Minutes pass like this, noise, then sudden pockets of silence broken by single shots. Finally, the firing ebbs. German voices retreat, fading into the trees. No one moves. The older soldier stays flat, listening, counting heartbeats. Only when the rain is the loudest sound again does he push himself up onto his elbows. Around him, the younger men stare, wide-eyed, breathing hard. The platoon leader crawls over, mud-streaked, eyes searching faces. Anyone hit? No answer. The older soldier wipes rain from his eyes, scans the dark once more, and reloads with hands that do not shake. This was not the main attack. He knows it. It was a test. And the forest is still full of Germans. The rain doesn't let up. By 5 o'clock hours the forest has lightened just enough to turn the darkness into a gray smear between the trees. Dawn in the Hurtgen doesn't arrive cleanly. It leaks in, weak and uncertain, filtered through branches so thick it feels like night refusing to leave. Smoke from the brief firefight hangs low, trapped beneath the canopy, mixing with fog rising from the soaked ground. The platoon stays frozen in place. No one celebrates the repelled patrol. No one even whispers about it. Every man here knows what probing fire means. It means someone somewhere is taking notes. It means artillery comes next, or worse, a coordinated push through ground the Americans barely understand. The older soldier shifts his weight again, easing pressure off his knee. Pain flares, sharp, then dulls. He ignores it. Pain is background noise now. He checks his ammo. 4 N-block clips left in his pouches, 1 in the rifle. Enough for a fight. Not enough for a long one. A radio operator tries the handset again, cradling it under his poncho to keep the rain out. Static answers him. He adjusts the antenna, whispers into the mouthpiece. Red 2 to battalion. Red 2 to battalion. Enemy contact, platoon strength. Over. Nothing. The platoon leader crawls along the line, stopping at each position, making eye contact, touching shoulders. When he reaches the older soldier, he pauses a moment longer. "You good?" he asks quietly. The older man nods once. They were light, not scared enough. The lieutenant exhales through his nose. He doesn't ask how the man knows. Experience recognizes experience. At 5:17, the first mortar round lands. It whistles down and bursts 30 yards short of the line, a sharp crack that flings mud and shattered branches outward. A second follows almost immediately, closer. The third lands behind them, cutting off the shallow withdrawal route toward the road. "Down!" someone shouts unnecessarily. Men press deeper into the ground. Helmets clang against roots. The older soldier flattens himself, mouth open to equalize pressure as another round detonates, the concussion slamming through his chest like a fist. Dirt rains down, gritty between his teeth. The barrage is not heavy, but it is deliberate. Walking fire, adjusting. You feel it in the spacing between impacts, in the way the explosions creep forward, testing ranges. Someone is watching. Someone is calculating. German machine guns open up next, MG-42s, their distinctive ripping sound tearing through the forest from multiple angles. Tracers rake the treeline, snapping branches, chewing bark into splinters that whip through the air like shrapnel. A tree to the right of the older soldier erupts in a spray of wood. He flinches despite himself. The platoon returns fire in bursts, muzzle flashes brief and controlled. The older soldier fires only when he sees movement. Gray shapes darting between trunks, low and fast. He drops one, then another, each time shifting position before the echoes fade. Minutes stretch into an hour. The rain slackens, replaced by a fine mist that clings to skin and cloth. Sweat runs cold down spines. A runner crawls up from the rear again, eyes wide. "Lieutenant," company says second platoon got hit hard. They're pulling back. "We're exposed on the flank." The word hangs there. Exposed. The lieutenant looks at the map spread on the ground between them, its edges already dissolving from wet. The lines are vague. Trails that don't exist anymore. Contour marks that mean nothing in this tangle of trees. "Any word from battalion?" he asks. The runner shakes his head. "Wire's dead. Radio's dead." Another mortar round lands close enough to shower the map with mud. The lieutenant folds it away. German infantry presses closer now. You can hear them. Boots slipping, equipment clinking, shouted orders carried on the damp air. They're not charging. They're squeezing, feeling for weakness, trusting their guns to pin while they maneuver. A burst of MG fire catches a man 2 positions down from the older soldier. He cries out once, high and startled, then goes quiet. Medics can't reach him. No one can move. The older soldier feels something tighten in his chest. Not fear exactly. Responsibility. The sense that time is narrowing, that choices are being stripped away. He crawls closer to the lieutenant, keeping low, bullets snapping overhead. They're coming in small groups, he says, using the trees. If they mass, they'll roll us. The lieutenant studies him, rain dripping from his helmet brim. Suggestions. The older soldier glances toward a slight rise ahead, a knuckle of ground where the trees thin just enough to create overlapping fields of fire. He'd noticed it earlier. Always noticing. Let them think we're weaker on the left, he says. I'll stay forward. Draw them in. The lieutenant hesitates. He looks at the man again. The gray hair, the stiff knee, the eyes that have not left the forest since first light. You're exposed out there. The older soldier shrugs. I've been exposed a long time. Another mortar round detonates, closer than any before. The decision window slams shut. All right, the lieutenant says. But you don't play hero. The older soldier doesn't answer. He's already crawling forward, disappearing into the trees as German fire intensifies. Behind him, the pressure builds. Ahead of him, the forest waits. The forest ahead feels tighter, as if the trees themselves have closed ranks. The older soldier moves inch by inch, elbows and knees sinking into soaked loam. Every motion is deliberate. He times his movements between bursts of German fire, between the distant thump of mortars adjusting again. His poncho drags behind him, heavy with water and mud. He leaves it when it catches on a root. No point carrying anything that makes noise. At 6:03 hours, he reaches the shallow rise. It's barely a hill, more of a spine where the ground lifts a few feet. But from here the view opens just enough. Through the trunks, he can see movement. German infantry advancing in loose files, spaced carefully, helmets low, rifles carried at the ready. They're confident now. They believe the Americans are pinned, disorganized, close to breaking. He wedges himself behind a fallen log, its bark stripped by shrapnel. The wood is slick. He tests his footing, settles his weight so his bad knee doesn't betray him. He checks the rifle again. One in the chamber. Safety off. Behind him, out of sight, the platoon shifts as quietly as it can. Orders are passed by touch and whisper. Men slide to new positions, opening gaps where the Germans expect resistance, thickening the line where they don't. The older soldier becomes the hinge. At 6:11, he fires his first shot from the new position. A German squad leader goes down mid-step, his body folding awkwardly, helmet rolling free. The men behind him hesitate, just a heartbeat, but it's enough. The older soldier fires again, catching another man as he turns, confusion on his face. German return fire snaps back immediately. Bullets hammer the log, sending chips flying. The older soldier rolls, coming up behind a tree 2 meters to the right, already lining up his next shot. He breathes through his nose, slow, controlled. You hear the forest change when momentum shifts. German voices rise in urgency. Orders are shouted louder, more insistent. An MG-42 opens up somewhere to the left, trying to pin the unseen shooter. The older soldier waits it out. At 6:19, he pops up long enough to fire twice, then drops again as a burst rakes the spot he just vacated. One German screams. Another lies still, half hidden by ferns. The Germans begin to angle toward him, exactly as he'd hoped. Back at the platoon line, the lieutenant sees the movement. He raises his arm, chopping it forward once. The signal passes down the line. American rifles open up from the repositioned flank. The effect is immediate and brutal. Germans advancing toward the older soldier suddenly take fire from their right, bullets ripping through a column that thought itself safe. Men dive for cover that doesn't exist. Someone yells for smoke. Grenades are thrown blindly, exploding short. For a moment, the forest is chaos. Sound overlapping sound, orders drowning in gunfire, men firing at shadows. The older soldier keeps working. He fires, shifts, fires again. Each movement costs more than the last. His knee burns now, hot and insistent. He feels it swell inside his trousers. He ignores it. Pain has become a schedule item, something to be managed later, if there is a later. At 6:27, a German grenade lands too close. He hears the metallic clink, sees the dark shape bounce once against a root. He reacts without thought, rolling downhill as the explosion punches the air flat. Dirt slams into his back. His ears ring. For a second, the world narrows to a high-pitched whine. He lies still, counting. 1, 2, 3. The ringing fades enough for him to hear shouting again. German shouting, angry now, panicked. He pushes himself up onto one elbow, grimacing as pain lances through his leg. His rifle is still in his hands. The front sight is caked with mud. He wipes it with his sleeve and fires. Another German falls. By 6:40, the German advance stalls. Bodies lie in uneven arcs between the trees. Survivors hunker down, firing sporadically, unsure where the killing shots are coming from. The American platoon has regained cohesion. Their fire is controlled again, overlapping, punishing. The lieutenant crawls forward to the edge of the new line, peering through binoculars fogged with moisture. He sees the damage. He sees the Germans pulling back 10, 20 meters at a time, dragging wounded, leaving others where they fell. He also sees something else. A second German element moving in from the north. Fresh, organized, using the lull to reposition. He keys the radio again, more out of desperation than hope. Static answers. The lieutenant looks toward the rise where the older soldier is still fighting alone. He knows the truth now. This was never just a probe. The Germans are feeding men in testing, adapting. The tactical shift bought them time. But time is running out. At 7:02, the first German artillery round lands, this one heavier than the mortars. The explosion is deeper, the shockwave stronger. Trees shudder. Men flinch. The Germans have decided to end this properly. The older soldier feels the ground jump beneath him and knows the fight has entered a new phase. He reloads, hands stiff, and braces himself against the log once more. This forest is not done with him. 7:08 hours. The artillery doesn't come all at once. It arrives in pieces, single rounds spaced just far enough apart to keep men guessing, to force them to stay pinned without offering the mercy of rhythm. Each explosion punches a hole in the forest, snapping trunks, ripping branches free, throwing shards of wood like knives. The older soldier hugs the ground as a shell detonates uphill, showering him with dirt and needles. A heavy branch crashes down nearby, splitting open on a rock. The air smells sharp now, fresh sap, burned powder, the metallic tang of hot steel. He waits, counts, listens. Artillery like this means someone is observing. Someone has eyes on the American line or thinks they do. That assumption is a mistake. At 7:14, the shelling shifts slightly east. Then another round lands farther back than before. Overshooting. The Germans are adjusting, but they're guessing. Their forward observers can't see through the smoke and trees the way they need to. The older soldier realizes it before anyone else. He inches forward again, dragging himself into a shallow depression formed by an uprooted tree. From here, the ground slopes gently down toward a narrow draw the Germans are using as a covered approach. He peers through broken branches and sees movement. More than before. This isn't a cautious advance. It's a rush. A German platoon surges forward in a tight group, trusting the artillery to keep the Americans suppressed. They're closer together now, less careful, weapons at the ready but eyes forward, not scanning the flanks. They haven't seen him. The older soldier feels a cold clarity settle over him. The kind that strips everything away except angles, distance, timing. He braces the rifle against the dirt, elbows sunk in, breath slow. He fires. The first man goes down hard, dropping straight onto his face. The second stumbles over him, hit almost simultaneously. The tight formation collapses into confusion in seconds. Men collide, shout, scatter for cover that isn't there. The older soldier fires again and again, each shot precise. He changes targets deliberately, point man, radio operator, the man shouting orders. He doesn't chase movement. He ends it. German return fire erupts wildly. Bullets chew through the dirt around him, hammering roots, cracking rocks. He rolls to the side as a burst rakes his last position, comes up behind a stump and fires again. Within 2 minutes, the draw is littered with bodies. Back at the platoon line, men stare in disbelief as the German push disintegrates in front of them. Someone laughs. A short, hysterical sound, then clamps a hand over his mouth. The lieutenant squints through binoculars, trying to understand what he's seeing. "That's one man," someone mutters. "That's just one man." The Germans realize their error almost immediately. At 7:22, machine guns swing toward the rise. MG-42s open up in disciplined bursts, stitching the ground where the older soldier is concealed. Dirt geysers around him. A round clips his helmet, ringing his skull like a bell and tearing the steel open along the rim. The impact knocks him flat. For a moment he doesn't move. The world pulses in and out, edges blurring. He tastes blood. Rain dots his vision, or maybe it's something else. He presses his face into the mud, forcing himself to stay conscious. "Not yet," he whispers, though no one can hear him. Another shell lands nearby, closer than any before. The concussion lifts him off the ground and slams him down again. Pain explodes in his knee. He screams this time, the sound torn from him without permission. He clamps his jaw shut immediately, breathing through clenched teeth. He cannot stay here. Dragging his leg behind him, he crawls downslope, every movement agony. Bullets chase him, snapping branches inches from his hands. He reaches a fallen tree and wedges himself against it, chest heaving. He reloads with shaking fingers. The mistake the Germans made, mass, speed, confidence, has cost them dearly. But they adapt quickly. Smoke canisters arc through the air now, hissing as they spill thick gray clouds into the forest. Visibility collapses. Shapes vanish. The older soldier fires twice into the smoke at muzzle flashes, then stops. Blind fire wastes ammunition. He waits, listening for footsteps, for voices, for the subtle sounds of men moving when they think they are unseen. At 7:34, he hears them. Boots sliding. A whispered command in German, close, too close. He pivots, rifle already up, and fires point-blank into the smoke. A body crashes down against the log beside him. Another shape lunges out of the haze. The older soldier fires again. The rifle's recoil jars his shoulder. The second German falls almost on top of the first. Silence follows, heavy and unnatural. The smoke drifts, thinning. The older soldier stays frozen, eyes scanning, ears straining. He feels every heartbeat in his injured leg now, a deep throbbing that threatens to pull him under. He has lost track of time, lost track of how many shots he's fired. All he knows is that the forest keeps offering targets, and he keeps surviving. Back at the American line, ammunition is running low. Men pass clips hand to hand. The lieutenant counts heads, recalculates again and again. He realizes the truth settling in. The Germans have committed too much to break off easily. They will try again. And next time they will come harder. The older soldier leans his forehead against the wet wood of the log, breath ragged. He wipes rain and blood from his eyes and forces himself upright. The fight isn't over. It's just becoming personal. 7:47 hours. The artillery pauses. That silence is worse than the explosions. It settles over the forest like a held breath, pressing in on every man still alive. You hear the rain again, softer now, tapping leaves, dripping from shattered branches. Somewhere, a wounded German moans, the sound thin and distant, then cuts off abruptly. The older soldier stays crouched behind the log, eyes fixed ahead, rifle steady despite the tremor creeping into his hands. The tremor isn't fear, not exactly. It's fatigue, adrenaline burning down to embers. muscles demanding payment. He forces himself to count breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow, deliberate. He presses 2 fingers into the mud, grounding himself in the cold. The real. The forest plays tricks on him now. Every shadow looks like movement. Every drip of water sounds like a footstep. He knows this stage well, the edge where perception starts to fray, where men fire too early or not at all. He refuses both. Behind him, back at the platoon line, nerves are stretched just as thin. Men whisper prayers, curse under their breath, stare at nothing. The platoon leader squats low, helmet pushed back, eyes red from smoke and lack of sleep. He checks his watch again, though it doesn't matter. Time has stopped behaving normally. At 8:03, the German artillery resumes, but differently. Instead of walking fire, rounds begin falling in a loose box around the American position. Not tight enough to annihilate them, just enough to seal them in. Trees fall across the shallow withdrawal route. A shell lands near the radio operator, killing him instantly, the handset flying free and dangling uselessly from its wire. The lieutenant flinches, then steadies. He looks toward the rise again, toward the man still out there alone, holding back pressure that should have crushed them already. The older soldier feels the first wave before he sees it. The forest ahead comes alive with motion. Dozens of gray shapes emerging from behind trees, advancing in bounds, covering one another with disciplined fire. This time they are spread wide. This time they know exactly where he is. Machine guns lock onto his position. Bullets hammer the log, splintering it. One round punches through the wood and tears into his shoulder, spinning him sideways. Pain flares white-hot. His arm goes numb. He grunts, bites down hard, forces himself to roll. Blood runs warm under his jacket. He fumbles the rifle, nearly drops it, then locks his fingers back around the stock. "You're not done," he tells himself aloud, voice hoarse. He switches shoulders, ignoring the protest, and fires again. A German stumbles, falls. Another takes his place immediately. There is no pause now, no hesitation. The older soldier's world contracts to a narrow tunnel, front sight, trigger, recoil. He doesn't think about the wound, doesn't think about the men advancing. He thinks only about the next shot. At 8:11, a German squad breaks left, trying to flank him through thicker brush. He hears them before he sees them, the sound of branches forced aside, of breath coming too fast. He pivots, firing twice into the undergrowth. A scream answers him. His rifle runs dry. For one terrible second, he stares at the empty chamber, the metallic click louder than any gunshot. He slams a clip in, thumb smarting as the bolt snaps forward. He fires immediately, catching a German who has risen too confidently. The return fire intensifies. Rounds kick up dirt inches from his face. A tree beside him collapses, shredded by machine gun fire, falling across his legs. Pain explodes through his knee again. He screams, the sound torn loose, raw and uncontrolled. He is pinned. Rain runs down his face, mixing with blood. His breath comes in ragged gasps now. His vision tunnels. The edges go dark. For the first time since dawn, a thought intrudes unbidden. This is where it ends. The thought passes, not because it isn't possible, but because it isn't useful. He wedges the rifle against the fallen trunk, using it as cover, and fires through gaps in the branches. The Germans are close now, too close for comfort. He can see their faces when the smoke thins, see strain and surprise etched there. They did not expect this. At 8:19, a German grenade lands beyond him, too far to matter. Another lands closer, rolling toward the tree pinning his legs. He reacts without hesitation, hooking it with the toe of his boot and kicking it back the way it came. The explosion is immediate. A shockwave slams into him, rattling his teeth. German shouting turns to screaming. For a moment, the advance falters. The older soldier sags against the log, chest heaving. His wounded arm hangs useless now. His leg is trapped. He is bleeding in more places than he can count. He should be unconscious. Instead, he laughs once, a broken, breathless sound. "You picked the wrong man," he whispers to the forest. Back at the platoon line, the lieutenant sees the Germans hesitate again. He sees them bunching, uncertain, their momentum broken for the third time. He makes a decision he knows he'll have to answer for later. "All fire forward," he orders. "Everything we've got." American rifles and bars erupt. The forest fills with sound again, louder than before. The Germans are caught between fires they can't fully locate. The older soldier hears the American guns behind him and knows, dimly, that he has bought them something precious: time. But his body is failing now. The shaking won't stop. The forest tilts. He presses his forehead to the stock, eyes closing despite himself. The battle is reaching its breaking point, and he is still alive. 8:31 hours. The rain finally stops. It doesn't fade gradually. It simply ends, leaving behind a forest dripping and steaming, the air heavy with the smell of churned earth and burned powder. Smoke hangs in layered sheets between the trees, thinning and thickening as the breeze shifts. For the older soldier, the sudden quiet is disorienting. His ears ring. His left arm is numb from shoulder to fingertips, soaked dark with blood. His right leg is still pinned beneath the fallen trunk, pain pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Every breath feels shallow, inadequate. Then he hears it. A whistle. Sharp. Commanding. German. He forces his eyes open, blinks rain and blood away, and peers through the smoke. Ahead, movement resolves into shape and order. An officer stepping forward, arm raised, signaling. The Germans are regrouping, not retreating, preparing for one more coordinated push to crush what they believe is a shrinking pocket of resistance. This is the moment. If they advance now in numbers, they will overrun the American platoon behind him. The line is thin. Ammunition is nearly gone. There is no artillery support, no radio, no reserves. The older soldier understands this with absolute clarity. He also understands something else. From the German perspective, he is the problem. One rifle, one position that keeps killing men who should be advancing unopposed. If he can make them believe there are more of him, if he can create the illusion of a stronger force, they might hesitate. They might stop. They might pull back just long enough. He drags his rifle close and checks the remaining ammunition. 2 clips. Maybe 3 if one hasn't fallen out during the last blast. His breathing steadies as the decision settles in. Not because it's easy, but because it's final. He begins firing again. Not carefully this time. Not selectively. He fires fast, shifting position between shots as much as his pinned leg allows. Rolling shoulders, angling the muzzle, changing rhythm. He fires from the left side of the log, then the right. He fires into the draw, then higher into the trees, mimicking multiple shooters. The sound is chaotic, aggressive. German heads snap down. Men hesitate. Someone shouts a warning. Another officer yells conflicting orders. The whistle blows again, then stops abruptly. The older soldier keeps firing. Each shot sends a jolt of pain through his body, but he welcomes it now. Pain means he's still conscious, still in the fight. A German machine gun tries to answer, stitching the log, chewing it apart. Splinters tear into his face. One cuts his cheek open. He ignores it, shifting again, firing from a new angle. At 8:39, a German soldier breaks cover, sprinting forward with a grenade. The older soldier tracks him, fires once. The man drops, grenade rolling free, detonating harmlessly in the mud. Shouts ripple through the German line. Frustration, disbelief, anger. Men look to their officers. Officers look for support that isn't coming. Back at the American position, the lieutenant hears the renewed fire ahead and realizes what the older soldier is doing. He recognizes the pattern, the speed, the movement, the deliberate chaos. "He's faking numbers," he mutters. He raises his voice. "Keep it up. Don't let them breathe." American fire intensifies again, ragged but determined. Bar gunners burn through the last of their magazines. Riflemen strip ammo from the dead. The forest echoes with defiance. At 8:47, the Germans break. It doesn't happen all at once. There is no shouted order to retreat. Instead, it begins with small things: a squad pulling back to 10 wounded, a machine gun going silent, a runner moving rearward instead of forward. Then it cascades. Men begin falling back in ones and twos, dragging the injured, abandoning positions that have become death traps. Smoke is thrown to cover movement. The whistle sounds again, long this time, the signal unmistakable. Withdraw. The older soldier watches it happen through a haze. He fires his last shots not to kill, but to hurry them along. Each crack of the rifle sends another ripple of caution through the retreating line. Finally, his rifle clicks empty. He lets it fall from his hands. The forest grows quieter by the second. Gunfire fades into the distance. German voices recede, swallowed by trees and terrain. The older soldier slumps back against the shattered log, every ounce of strength leaving him at once. His vision narrows. The world pulses. He doesn't know how long he sits there. Minutes, maybe longer. Then he hears boots. American boots. Jesus Christ. Someone breathes. Hands grab his shoulders, gentle but urgent. A face swims into view. Young, streaked with dirt, eyes wide with shock. "You're alive," the soldier says, as if it's a question. The older man tries to answer. Only a rasp comes out. Behind them, the lieutenant pushes through the brush, stopping short when he sees the scene. The bodies ahead, the torn ground, the single man slumped among it all. "How many?" the lieutenant asks quietly. No one answers. No one has counted yet. The older soldier's eyes close. The critical moment has passed. The forest, for now, has fallen silent. 9:06 hours. The forest does not celebrate victory. It only exhales. Smoke thins into pale ribbons drifting between trunks. The last distant cracks of rifle fire fade until they're indistinguishable from falling branches settling under their own weight. Somewhere deeper in the Hurtgen, artillery still rumbles, but it's far enough away now to feel like another world. The older soldier is half carried, half dragged back toward the American line. Every movement sends fresh waves of pain through him. His wounded arm hangs uselessly. His leg, freed from the fallen trunk, refuses to bear weight. He fades in and out, catching fragments of sound. Boots slipping, voices overlapping, a man vomiting just off to the side. They lay him out behind a shallow berm scraped into the earth, shelter barely worthy of the name. A medic kneels beside him immediately, hands already red before he's finished cutting fabric away. "Stay with me," the medic mutters, more to himself than to the wounded man. "Don't you go anywhere." Morphine hisses into muscle. The edge dulls, but consciousness clings stubbornly. The older soldier stares up through the branches, watching smoke dissolve into gray sky. For the first time since before dawn, his rifle is not in his hands. That absence feels strange. Around him, the platoon begins to take stock. Bodies are counted, ammunition tallied. Men slump where they stand, backs against trees, eyes hollow. Some laugh quietly, some shake. One man sits staring at his hands as if they belong to someone else. The lieutenant moves among them, voice low, controlled. He checks on the wounded, clasps shoulders, says names. When he reaches the older soldier, he stops. The medic looks up. He's stable. For now. The lieutenant nods, then looks out toward the rise, the ground that man held alone for hours. From here, it looks impossibly exposed. Barely cover at all. "How long?" The lieutenant asks no one in particular. A sergeant checks his watch. "Since first contact? Almost 5 hours." The realization settles heavily. 5 hours under pressure, cut off, outnumbered, under artillery. 5 hours of the forest trying to kill them. And yet, no Germans advancing now. At 9:41, scouts report movement again. Tension snaps back into the line. Men grab rifles, hands slick with sweat. The lieutenant raises his binoculars, heart hammering. But it isn't an attack. German stretcher teams move cautiously at the edge of visibility, white armbands visible through the trees. They move slowly, deliberately, lifting wounded, pausing often. No weapons raised. No rush. An unspoken understanding passes through the American line. Let them. The forest holds its breath again, but differently this time. Hours pass. The wounded are evacuated as best they can be, carried out on ponchos and doors ripped from ruined farmhouses deeper back. The older soldier is among the last moved, his injuries too severe to risk the rough trails until a clearer route can be secured. He drifts in and out as the day crawls forward. In his half-dreams, the forest replays itself. Flashes of gray shapes, muzzle flashes, the crack of the rifle echoing endlessly. Each time he wakes, he expects gunfire. Each time, there is only dripping water and murmured voices. At 1300 hours, battalion finally punches through with runners. Orders arrive in fragments, carried by men as exhausted as those they find. Hold. Reinforcements coming by nightfall. Armor attempting a route south. Expect renewed contact. The lieutenant reads the message twice, then folds it carefully. He looks at his men, what's left of them, and nods. We hold, he says simply. No one argues. As afternoon bleeds toward evening, the forest grows quieter still. The Germans do not return in force. Patrols probe at a distance but pull back quickly. The ground ahead, the killing ground, is avoided now. Respected. Word spreads in low voices, pieced together from what men saw, from what they counted while moving through the aftermath. German dead lie thickest where one man fought alone. Bodies stacked in unnatural angles. Trails of blood leading nowhere. Numbers circulate, uncertain at first. 40. 60. More. By dusk, no one laughs when someone says 100. The older soldier is conscious again as the light fades. He hears a young soldier nearby whisper, "That old guy, he saved us." The words float past him, barely registering. He isn't thinking about saving anyone. He's thinking about the sound of the rain stopping, about the weight of the rifle, about how tired he is. As darkness returns to the Hurtgen forest, flares rise far away, painting the clouds red for brief seconds. The front line holds, for now, and somewhere on that torn ground ahead, the forest keeps its tally. September 19th, 1944. 2:18 hours. Night in the Hurtgen forest is absolute. No moon reaches the ground. The canopy swallows what little light the sky offers, leaving only shadow layered on shadow. The air is cold now, damp enough to seep through bandages and uniforms alike. Men shiver without realizing it. The American line still holds. Reinforcements arrive in pieces, squads slipping in along muddy trails, guided by whispered passwords and the soft scrape of boots against wet earth. They take positions carefully, silently, as if afraid to wake the forest. Armor never makes it. The road is impassable, choked with wreckage and fallen trees. Everything here is done by hand. The older soldier is moved again just after midnight, lifted onto a stretcher improvised from poles and a poncho. Every step of the carry jolts pain through him, but he remains conscious, jaw clenched, refusing to drift. He listens to the night. He hears Germans too. Not close, not attacking, just voices far off, subdued, cautious. Movement without confidence. The fighting resumes briefly at 3:01 hours. A sharp exchange of fire when a German patrol wanders too near the American line. It lasts less than 5 minutes. 2 Germans fall. The rest vanish into the trees. After that, nothing. Dawn comes slowly again, gray light seeping into the forest as it did the day before. But the feeling is different now. The tension has shifted. The Americans sense it first, not as certainty but as absence. The pressure that had crushed them for 14 days along this sector has loosened. At 6:20 hours, scouts push forward into the ground the Germans had fought so hard to take. They find no resistance. The killing ground is revealed fully in daylight for the first time. Bodies lie where they fell, some tangled together, others alone beneath trees whose trunks are scarred with bullet strikes. Helmets rest where heads once were. Rifles lie abandoned, magazines empty. The earth is dark and churned, the forest floor torn open and reworked by fire and explosions. Men count without meaning to. They stop counting when it becomes too much. By mid-morning, it's clear. The German force opposite them has withdrawn several kilometers east, abandoning this section of the forest entirely. The line has broken, not in a dramatic collapse, but in a quiet concession that the ground is no longer worth the cost. The breakthrough is real, even if it feels unreal to those who paid for it. At 11:40 hours, battalion command arrives in person. Officers walk the ground carefully, faces grim, boots sinking into mud. They ask questions in low voices. They listen more than they speak. When they reach the rise, the shallow spine where the older soldier fought, they stop. One officer crouches, tracing bullet scars with his fingers. Another stares out toward the draw, eyes narrowing as he imagines men advancing into fire they never understood. "From here?" someone asks quietly. A sergeant nods. "From here." The officer straightens slowly. He doesn't say anything else. The older soldier is loaded onto a proper litter in the early afternoon. A jeep waits on the road beyond the trees, engine idling softly. As he's carried out, younger soldiers line the path, standing without being told. Some nod. Some look away. One removes his helmet. The older soldier notices none of it. He is staring at the sky through a break in the trees, pale and distant. His breathing is shallow but steady. The morphine has dulled the edges again. At the field aid station, a clerk begins paperwork with shaking hands. Name, rank, serial number, unit, wounds sustained. Then the question that makes him pause. Enemy casualties? No one answers immediately. A lieutenant steps forward. One man. Forward position. The clerk looks up, confused. One man. The lieutenant nods. Counted later. 121 confirmed. The clerk writes it down slowly, as if the pencil has become heavier. The forest does not care about numbers. But the line has moved. The Germans have yielded ground they swore to hold. And it happened because one man, called too old, nearly sent away, refused to leave his position. The Hurtgen forest falls quiet again, but not empty. The cost is written into the trees. September 19, 1944. Late afternoon. The forest is quieter than it has any right to be. Not peaceful, never that, but subdued, as if the ground itself is exhausted. Smoke still clings to the low places, thin and blue now, drifting lazily between trunks scarred black by fire. Sunlight finally breaks through in narrow shafts, illuminating patches of mud churned into something closer to paste than soil. Men move carefully through the aftermath. They step around bodies, not over them. Helmets are removed when identification is checked. Pockets are searched for papers. Weapons are gathered and stacked. Everything is done slowly, deliberately, as if moving too fast might wake the violence again. A pair of soldiers reaches the shallow rise where the older soldier made his stand. One of them stops short, staring. "Look at this," he murmurs. Spent clips litter the ground. Empty casings form uneven arcs in the mud, tracing where a man shifted, crawled, fired again. The log he used for cover is chewed nearly in half. Trees nearby are scarred chest-high, bark stripped away in long vertical lines. They follow the trail downslope. It leads through the draw, past bodies lying where they fell. Some face down, some on their backs, eyes open, expressions frozen in surprise or confusion. There are more than the mind wants to process. Too many to feel individually. The soldiers stop counting again. Word spreads anyway, passed in fragments. One guy held them off alone. Old enough to be my father. Each retelling grows quieter, not louder, as the weight of it settles in. At the aid station, the older soldier lies on a cot beneath a canvas roof that snaps softly in the breeze. Surgeons work in rotation, sleeves rolled, faces tight with focus. His wounds are cleaned, stitched, stabilized. Shrapnel is removed. A doctor shakes his head more than once, muttering under his breath. "He shouldn't be awake," he says at one point, but the older soldier is awake. He stares at the tent ceiling, listening to the distant sounds of trucks, of men shouting orders that no longer feel urgent. When a nurse leans close to check his pulse, he turns his head slightly. "Did they come back?" he asks, voice rough, barely more than air. She hesitates, then shakes her head. "No." He closes his eyes again. Outside, officers gather near a folding table, maps spread flat and weighted with stones. They mark new positions, new lines. The breakthrough is modest on paper, a few hundred yards here, a kilometer there, but in this forest it might as well be miles. An intelligence officer asks questions about the morning fight. Who was forward? Who held the rise? Who made the call? Each answer circles back to the same name. By evening, the forest fills with the sound of digging. Shovels bite into the ground. Graves are marked with helmets and rifles. No chaplain speaks yet. There will be time later. A young soldier stands near the edge of the rise as dusk settles, staring out into the trees. Another approaches, stops beside him. They say he killed over 100. The first whispers. The second shakes his head. Doesn't matter. He stopped them. Darkness returns, slow and heavy. Flares rise far away, but none here. This ground is quiet now, claimed at a cost no one will forget. The older soldier sleeps at last, deep and heavy, the kind of sleep that only comes when the body gives up fighting. The battle is over. What remains is the silence after. September 20th, 1944. Early morning. Fog settles into the Hurtgen forest like a final layer of ash. It fills the low ground, blurring the edges of trees, softening the scars without erasing them. The air is cold enough to bite. Somewhere, far off, artillery mutters, but it feels distant. Another war, another place. The American line is steady now. Men move through routine with the hollow precision of those who have survived something they don't yet understand. Weapons are cleaned. Boots are dried where fires are permitted. Names are read quietly, cross-checked against the living and the dead. On the forward ground, white cloth markers flutter faintly where graves were filled the night before. The forest watches without judgment. At the field hospital, the older soldier wakes to the sound of canvas snapping and boots passing outside. Light filters in through the tent walls, pale and diffuse. His body feels heavy, uncooperative, as if it belongs to someone else. A doctor stands at the foot of the cot, clipboard tucked under his arm. He studies the patient for a long moment before speaking. "You gave us trouble," he says mildly. The older soldier blinks, swallows. "Did I?" The doctor nods. "You nearly bled out twice. Shoulders bad. Knees worse. You won't be walking for a while." The older soldier absorbs this without comment. He stares past the doctor, listening. "Your unit held," the doctor adds. "They moved the line." The older soldier closes his eyes again. That is enough. Later, an officer arrives, a colonel this time. He removes his helmet before entering the tent. His voice is quiet, respectful. "You saved a lot of men," he says. The older soldier doesn't answer immediately. When he does, it's barely audible. "I just didn't leave." The colonel nods, as if that explains everything. Paperwork will follow. Reports. Citations. Numbers written in ink that will outlast the mud and blood. Somewhere, a clerk will type out the figure again, 121, and shake his head in disbelief. The older soldier will not see most of it. He is evacuated later that day, carried farther from the forest with each mile. The sound of gunfire fades entirely. The trees give way to roads, to buildings, to a war that feels less immediate. Back in the Hurtgen, the forest slowly closes over itself. Shell craters fill with water. Broken branches fall. Moss creeps back onto torn bark. The ground remembers even when men move on. The soldiers who remain will talk about it in low voices, usually at night. About the man they said was too old. About the way the Germans stopped coming. About the quiet that followed. They will not embellish much. They won't need to, because in that place, over 14 days of fighting compressed into a few terrible hours, one man stood where the line was thinnest and refused to break. And when it was over, he did not celebrate. He simply lived.